What's up, Blue Chips? 3, kind of 4 total trades today. Let's get to it. All right, traders. So starting here on VNOM, VNOM, whatever you want to call it, we actually had a little bit of a mistake to start the day off. So over the weekend, I adjusted my hot buttons so that I would still get into a position and have a set stop for a set risk. Well, when I hit the button, it didn't give me that set risk, which in this case, I got in at 9.92. I hit the 75-cent button, so 30-cent stop would have put us at 10.22. And as you can see, this spiked all the way up there to 10.38. Now, as this happened, it all happened pretty quickly. So I immediately was over my max loss on that first trade. But at the same time, these are the types of moves that I'm looking for. And typically in the past, you've seen this happen where if I do get stopped out of that first trade, we're just early and I was going to look to get back in. So as this happened, it pretty much went straight up to 10.38 and stopped. And I was like, okay, well, I would be getting back into this anyway. So I went over to the $1 button and hit that for 75 shares. This one was for 100 shares. And so as you can see, 100 shares here, 75 shares there. And so basically I told myself, okay, since we're risking $30 on this trade and then we'd be risking $30 on this trade and the hotkey isn't working, I am going to look over at my P&L just because I had to, and I'll now be risking $60 between the two of them. And this is actually something we talked about on the Friday night live stream, and to see it kind of happen in real time, it was pretty cool. In a way, it was a mistake because that's not what our plan was. I swear my dog Rags decides to walk around when I start making these videos every single time. And he's deaf, so I know he doesn't understand what I'm doing, but it's like he just senses that I'm talking to you guys. But anyways, as you can see, it pulled back and I realized the mistake was there. So I immediately wanted to get out of a decent amount of the position at my break-even point. So as it was coming back down, probably could have been a little bit more patient if this is what we were intending to do, but we obviously were not intending to do what happened. So I just wanted to get out and take the emotion out of the mistake and all the good stuff, right? So that's what we did. And then after that, we were left with 75 shares and I decided to go back to the normal plan, which was to scale out of the trade. So as you can see here, out of the 75, we took 50%, which I was going to use the 75% position button, but I figured with the 75 shares, I would just do the 50 and 25, which I actually did later, but I'll show you. As you can see here, 50 shares, and then we tried to pivot out of the rest. And for some reason, VNOM decided to squeeze up high of day, fake us out, stop us out where our most recent pivot was, which was high of day. And then as you can see, tank completely off. And as you can see, let's follow the pivots down here. So first pivot was here. So 10.16 comes back down, makes a new pivot here. 9.79 comes down, actually makes a new pivot here at 9.19. And then we never broke the low. So technically we could still be in this trade with a pivot point of 9.19. And yeah, so we would still be in this trade. Well, maybe, because we'll get to that on our last trade. But unfortunately, we didn't even get the opportunity, right? It came up, stopped us out. So that looks a little ugly, but that's the rules, right? That's the rules that we're following, and it is what it is. So on to our second trade, which was ZYXI. So this one was a little bit different. We nailed this one pretty perfectly. And for some reason, I believe this is the one where the order actually worked. Or maybe it didn't. I don't remember. But needless to say, this thing started to come back down. We got an entry here at 74.55. I believe we hit the $2 button. So we were looking for 80 cents here. It kept trying to get the 74 and it just did not want to bust through. It tried a couple times. The spread was really bad. And then it kept getting right back up to our entry and it just was sitting there. It did not want to really go back down towards that 74 area. It felt like it was being propped up. So let's zoom in a little bit here. And as you can see, it never really tried to push back down. It felt like it kept getting bought up. And then sure enough, we reduced our size here by half, just looking to not let this go full size against this high day because it felt like it was being propped up. It wasn't quite done yet. And if it was, then we were willing to just play or take half size loss there. And if it were to work out, then we were going to take a half size win. And as you can see, right after we got out, it did go down and test 74 again, but ultimately did not break. So we kept our stop, accepted the risk on that second half of the trade, and we ended up getting stopped out. And as you can see, that decided to also work out right after we got out. So the first two trades of the day on VNOM and ZYXI were a little frustrating to say the least. And then comes along ZYXI, ZYXI. And this one was almost just as frustrating, and it is a little bit, which we'll get to. But as you can see here, we jumped in right under the $0.5, 21.45. It felt like it was a little toppy. We had a nice extension away from previous resistance, and so we took our chance. We hit the 40-cent button, gave us 40 cents range or set risk, which would have put us right at our $30 loss. And as you can see, it jumped right to 21.80. And I thought it was just going to stop us out right away. And I thought we were in another situation like we were on VNOM. So I thought we were going to have to re-enter this trade after it stopped us out. Maybe it would go through 22. We'd look to re-enter because then it looks really nice and extended, but it didn't quite stop us out. Comes down, starts to get down towards our take profit area. Or actually, not really. What was our entry? 45. Yeah, so we needed to get to 21.05, and we got to 21.20. And this thing had a pretty big spread the entire time. It was like at least 10 cents at all times. And as you can see, it shot right back up there towards high day. It got to 75, almost 76, and then it didn't quite get there. It didn't stop us out, thankfully. Comes back down. We get our 75% here at our 20. It was 21.06 because it took forever to get the ask to come down even close to this. So when it finally dropped to 1 cent and it was just kind of sitting there, we took it. We weren't going to risk it jumping up 20 cents on us for 1 cent. So we took our 75% there, and then we were planning on playing the pivots here, but that was right around 10:30. As you can see, it was actually a little bit after 10:30. The kids were getting a little antsy, and I told myself, you know what? If it breaks this previous resistance and comes down and hits VWAP, I'll be perfectly happy. And I told myself that on all of these trades to scale out, we're going to be using the pivot points. Well, if I was using the pivot points, we would still be in this trade, and it's all the way down here at 1912. Our last pivot would be technically, let's see, coming down, breaks the low. Does this actually break the low? 19, looks like 1903. So technically this pivot hasn't broke. So if you're going off the pivot points, this would technically be your last one up here. So 1968, but I would probably be using this 1950 because it really doesn't make sense because it bounced, comes up, comes all the way back down and retests that low. But if you're really playing the pivot seriously, you wouldn't ever move your pivot down until it breaks that low. Because that's the whole point. It just keeps going bounce lower, like the bouncy ball effect. So you can see it's starting to form support here at 19, but we technically would still be in this trade, probably trying to see what it does here at 19. If it holds again and then starts to move up, that's when you could, if you want to consider just kind of getting out of it. But it does look like it wants to go lower. It's actually going to try it here. So a little frustrating because our cover was all the way up here at 2065 and we could still be in this $1.60 lower. That's pretty nuts. Even though it would have only been 19 shares, that would have made this trade over 2-to-1 very easily, just on 25% partial left. So that's what I plan on doing in the future. But the outside influences, distractions, whatever you want to call them, yes, I am still the one hitting the button, but they are called influences and distractions for a reason. They kind of get your emotions involved and make you do things that you probably shouldn't be doing. But that's all I have for you today. So don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask those down below. And as always, if you want to watch these trades live, right up there, I'll put the card. Timestamps are already in the description, so you can go right to the trades. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Peace.